All right, you guys. So I recently got a question about this was on Meat Fighters, and this person's like absolutely brand new, doesn't know all the vast array of chokes that are out there. If you are watching this, please by all means search through this channel to try to find other choke videos that I've done on all the different chokes that are out there, and understand that for me to give you defenses for chokes when there's just such a broad category of chokes out there is kind of an unfair question because there are so many elements that go into a choke. But let's go ahead and talk about this a little bit from the beginning. And the thing is that when if somebody's at all good whatsoever, or even knows some basics about wrestling, they're not going to go for a choke right off the bat. You might see some high-end competitors if you watch like a BJJ match or something like that, where they shake hands and then the next moment they're climbing on somebody's back and they're choking them out, or they go for a guillotine or something like that very, very quickly at the start of the match. But generally speaking, that's not recommended. Those people are people that have practiced that a lot of times. They have the timing absolutely down, and there's a lot that goes into it that makes those chokes very, very doable. But for a beginner, what we tell you when it comes to any submission whatsoever is that we want to focus on our position first, make sure that that's solid, and then we worry about the submission. And I've talked about this a lot with like arm bars or things like that. And just to kind of give you an idea of like the vastness of everything, is that when you say how do you defend against chokes, well, that's kind of in the same category of asking how do you defend against a joint lock. And there are so many joint locks out there that there's no way for me to tell you in one easy answer what are the defenses for all the joint locks. What I can tell you is don't give up your arms, right, for arm attacks. So, we get into this prayer position for multiple reasons. One is so that we can protect our neck, but also so that we can protect our arms so they can't be easily separated from our body. When people get choked or they get a joint lock, usually it's a lot of times for the same reason. It's because we are trying to push somebody off when they're trying to get on top of us. We're extending our arms away, and then they're able to get separated from our arms. We can get into the Americanas, Kimuras, arm bars, things like that. And the same thing is true. One of the ways that I get a Darce choke, for example, which you're going to have to look up what a Darce choke is because I can't really demonstrate right now with this bad knee. But when I'm passing somebody's guard, oftentimes people will extend their arms out, and that allows me to lace in here and get that underhook on the head, boom, and get that Darce choke from there. If I So that's kind of the first thing I would tell you, is that for a lot of chokes, having your hands here to protect your neck is going to be one of the first things that's generally going to help you. Oftentimes, putting your chin down is going to help protect, because then you can't get under the chin to get there. There are exceptions to that, right? So if I'm looking down when I'm going for a double leg takedown, for example, if I'm looking down, then that's going to kind of give people that opening for getting a choke from the double leg takedown from standing. Whereas with a single leg takedown, we press our ear against their body and we try to close up space by making sure that this whole area is like pinned against their body for when we're doing like a single leg. For a double leg, we kind of pin against the side of their body here and lift up and look up, and it's a kind of a different setup because we're actually kind of picking the person up and whatnot, whereas if we go too down, we expose our neck more. So it really depends on where we fucked up that actually led to us being choked. If somebody's got the rear mount, right, they're on our backs, they've got their hooks in, their legs are not crossed, and then you lace your across their neck and you go in for this rear naked choke here, right? That's where like this type of defense is absolutely critical, where I'm keeping my chin buried and I'm blocking with my hands and whatnot. So I'm being very tight with those things, and that's going to be one of my best defenses. But then his follow-up question was, well, what if they've already got under your chin? Well, when we talk about any submission, we have, okay, is your body being controlled? Right? That's going to be one of the first things. If they don't have body control, then you can defend most anything fairly well. So if we were both standing and somebody just walked behind me and just went into this rear naked choke position, I can change my body level and position in order to start to break that down. I can maybe start to turn the corner and take their arm with me. So if they're coming around this way and they don't have this arm, even if they have this but they don't have it behind my head, or if they're idiots and they put it on the top of my head, sometimes I can start to grab their wrist, isometrically hold their wrist to my body, right? I don't want to be pulling down. I actually just want to hold it to my body, drop my shoulder, and turn with it, right? And what that will do is it'll help unwind that arm. That might be a good way to start to do it, or I might have to, step behind their body and leverage that down. So, I'm carrying it with me. I'm putting the full weight of my body in order to bring that arm down. I can't usually just pull it down on the elbow. I actually have to go to the end of the lever, which is going to be the wrist, not the elbow. Like if I'm trying to choke somebody, first of all, my finish is to collapse like this. So if you're pulling down on my elbow, you're only kind of helping to finish that choke. If you're going for that wrist, then, right? The other thing is when I do a rear naked choke, usually I'll try to turn my arm out, grab my tricep. This helps to like really pull my wrist over so I get a really strong grip onto my bicep tricep area, and then I can go behind the neck or behind the head, and I go all the way down to the neck, and then I bring my elbows together, right? So most chokes, oftentimes, this second hand is what is needed in order to finish that choke. So stopping this hand from coming around the front and then coming behind the head, that's going to be a big thing. What it also does is it pinches my hand onto my bicep here. So it becomes harder to pull this arm away from your neck. So from a rear naked choke defense, once it got under your chin, it can actually be finished without this hand at all. I can grab my own shoulder, sometimes I can grab their shoulder, and oftentimes in a gi we can actually just finish like this. Some people will finish like this. This can work. It's easier to defend, but it can work. So breaking down the rear naked choke, sometimes, yes, defending this hand, but clever people sometimes will go like this. I'll take this hand that would be my locking hand. I'm going to put it up against my body back here where you can't reach it, slide it up. So I've got this here, slide it up, thump, and I slide it into position, right? Right over the top of it. And you're not going to really have the opportunity to block me from bringing it up front, right, to get it behind my neck, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So to defend a rear naked choke, another way that you can sometimes do it, if you are in the rear mount and they don't have good hooks in, which means that I put my heels between your legs, like right in here, like that. Sometimes what you can do is you can start to arch back, like hold their wrist or their arm in place, arch back and get my shoulders onto the mat behind me and start to turn into them, or turn away from them, depending on what the situation is. Sometimes that works. Sometimes if they're starting to get in here, I can scoop my hips down towards their hips, so I kind of do a reverse shrimp, and I get kind of my shoulders between their legs, so I end up closer to their guard. Then it's not practical for them to get that. Really, and that's kind of what we're doing with, if we're moving our body up or down in relation to their body, we are shifting the biomechanics for that rear naked choke, so that it becomes harder to put on. But that's just one category of choke. So another category of choke would be an arm in choke. So the rear naked choke, I'm just going around the neck and I'm doing that, right? But then there are head and arm chokes which include like a triangle choke and things like that. And sometimes what you can do to kind of defend those at least a little bit is you can do like what's called a telephone defense. So I bring the trapped arm up to my ear, and that way I can kind of leverage out. Some people, especially with a triangle choke, will come around and they'll hug that leg and they'll kind of posture up, and what that'll do is it'll create space, because what you need to be driving the trapped arm shoulder into this artery right here, and that's part of the finish of that choke. So by wrapping the leg and really kind of opening this up, you open up all this space, so it doesn't matter how much pressure goes on this side of the neck, you're not going to get choked as much. Can you still pass out from that? Yes. Can you still have your windpipe crushed? Yes. But the ability of doing that is going to be reduced because we are opening up that space. That's not always, for everything. Sometimes if we're talking about a head and arm choke, right? So if I am belly down on the ground, you're up there, and I've got my arm around your neck, and then I'm pinning the arm with my head and whatnot, and you start going for that telephone defense, what I can do is I can actually lace my free hand through this little triangle that's created here, and then I can throat crush from there. And create the kind of this chopping down motion like a rear naked choke or something like that. So, every choke has a counter choke. It has other defenses. Some people think that, in order to have a triangle choke to be effective, you have to have that arm in. Well, that arm is really there for control. It's much easier to pull your head out when it's just your head in there. But I can use my own arm, right, and grab my ankle. I've shown this on this channel before. And that can, replace your arm being in there. Another thing is that I can just go for a straight head scissor, right? And I can even go and wrap my arms around just like a scorpion crush, and then straighten both. And what that will do is, it's going to crush the side of your neck, and it's going to be so tight, it's going to be really hard for you to get your head out. Can you stack somebody in that situation? Absolutely. That means to kind of fold them up, take their hips and put them over their shoulders so that they're sitting on their neck, and then that will cause somebody to release. Yes, that would be a good defense for that. Other things, if a triangle choke is coming, for example, the legs have shot up in the air, the first thing you do, posture up and look straight up to the ceiling, right? And that's going to stop them from getting their leg across your neck. Maybe it'll end up on your shoulders. It's going to be very hard to finish from that position. And from there, you can start doing what would be like a single leg guard pass or a double under guard pass, right? If they don't have that other arm in. So you just stack them and turn the corner and look it off. And so that would be another way of defending that choke, potentially. Are any of these, tried, true, 100% perfect? Nothing in wrestling is, right? So it really depends on the context, and it really depends on the type of choke that we're looking at and the setup of it. So if we look at it as stages of a submission, right, they're going to be looking for bodily control first, if they're any good whatsoever. Right, if they're in control of the situation, then they can put on the submission at their leisure. The second thing is going to be, the first stage setup, right? So if we're talking about a Darce choke, for example, I'm going to pull your arm, I'm going to lace under, and I'm going to cup the back of your head. That's the first stage. When I get this other arm over and then I chest into your shoulder, right? That's going to be, that third stage, that final stage of that choke. Rear naked choke from the back mount. The first stage is that I've got the back mount. And that's when you know that the rear naked choke is coming. So the first defense is going to be blocking that pathway for their arm getting under. If that arm is getting around your chin, I sometimes will have to do this thing. I'll create a little blade here, and I'll put their chin at my forearm, and I'll shuck like I'm shucking an oyster, right, to kind of lift that up. Some people are douchebags. They'll crush your nose and lift up from there, or things like that. You can do that from the forehead to a certain extent. But that's going to be kind of your second stage, is when that arm is coming around. Third stage is going to be actually locking this up if I've gotten under your chin. And if I've gotten under your chin, you're pretty fucked already. And that's something that you really, really need to understand is you need to recognize that the back mount was the first stage that you had where you need to be on the defensive. The second stage is going to be once that arm goes around and the choke is halfway set up. And once it's locked in, there's not a lot that you can do. It's really, really hard to break apart a rear naked choke, for example, once it's already in locked position. I might be able to take one of my arms and jackhammer up on this elbow, right, to kind of force it to loosen up here. Whether or not you're going to get out before you pass out, that's a very good question on that. But yeah, pressing up, I wouldn't do it with consistent pressure. I would actually pop, 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 pop. That's going to just be harder for their muscles to stabilize and hold it in that position. And it might be a 2-on-1 situation. I have got two arms free now. The reason why I have two arms free is because I'm not defending, right? They're both occupied now, but now that I'm already fucked, they're free to unfuck me. So really working on breaking apart that grip there. Once that is broken, then I can get to the top of the lever and start to break down the arm that's going around my neck. But again, that's really hard to do. And so my best advice to you is don't fuck up over here, right? So that you don't have to deal with it when we're in that third stage, that finishing stage of the submission. So I hope this helps. I know that it's maybe not the nicest answer that I could have given you, but I think that that's at least got the thought process going on how to actually think about submissions and starting to break them down. And the best way that you can learn to defend a submission is to learn how to do it, even if you're not going to use that submission. So if you are saying, you know, I really don't like doing this particular submission, like the Barada Plata. It just always feels sloppy for me. I don't like having the guy's hand in my crotch and trying to turn my hips. I always feel like it's easy for his hand to pop out or something like that. That's fine. But I would still argue that you should learn the Barada Plata so you know the setups for it, you know when it's coming, and you know what actually makes it work so that you can break it apart and dismantle it and reverse engineer it, right? So those that's about the best advice that I can give you at this point in time. Hopefully, by the time I actually get to meet you, my knee will be healed and we'll be able to actually talk about this in a one-on-one setting, and so that you can actually kind of feel where those things are at, and we can hit this on a better level. So thank you very much for watching. You guys have a lovely day. You know, if anybody wants to help out with this channel, especially since I'm not able to really demonstrate things right now, please go ahead and drop me a line and I will give you access. I promise I will. I really would appreciate the help. So I'm sure everybody else would too. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Have a great day.